neuroplasticity and neuroscience is all showing this as well. How we think about things in life determines really how our life, the results that are come out in our life. And so how we step into that mindset is a whole other ball game. But it's like, I work with a trainer and he'll put a 5-pound weight in my hand, and other days he'll put a 25-pound weight in my hand. And I'm like, of course I love the 5-pound weight days. I can feel confident and comfortable, but it's those 25 pounds that really start building that muscle. It's the same thing with our mindset.
Welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast, your guide for living a life by design. Here, we explore the journey of becoming an outlier, finding your purpose, mastering your mindset, optimizing your health, achieving financial freedom, and building a life centered around your passions. So tune in, transform, and thrive. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset. Let the journey begin. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Rodman Schley, and today we welcome to the show Dr. Heather Penny. Heather's a distinguished leadership coach, a trusted advisor, and celebrated author who inspires individuals to step into their best lives by recognizing and leveraging their unique strengths. With a PhD in human services and an MA in educational leadership, she guides clients toward clarity, confidence, and courage, fostering forward momentum and purposeful engagement in their personal and professional relationships. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is so good to be here, Rodman. I've just been looking forward to this all day.
Yeah, me too. There's so many things that I want to talk to you about today. I know about your book. I want to talk about your book. I know about your background. You have so much to bring to my entrepreneurship community, and I'm really excited to get into some of the fundamentals. But maybe you could start by telling people what you're about.
Yes. Well, I started out in education, teaching little guys, little third graders, and fast forward several decades later, moved me into consulting and coaching, and I've had my own coaching company for the last 15 years, and I'm strongly in the entrepreneur seat. But it took me a while to shift out of what I knew work to be, and to take that leap. For me, it was a significant leap of faith to move over into this whole new space of entrepreneurship and believe not only that I could do it, but that I could be successful in it. And here we are at the happy ending, but I can talk about all the different struggles and challenges along the way, what that means to take that shift. But for all, it sounds like your audience is strong entrepreneurs. And I guess I just know I'm cheering all of you on, because I know those dark days and I know those happy days and everything in between.
Yeah, I know. Entrepreneurship is a lot of struggle. It's incredible, and it's very, very rewarding. But the struggle is real. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of energy. Yeah. But that's kind of why it's so important that you are doing something that you love, because you are going to be putting in all that time. You are going to be putting in all that energy. And I always tell people it's always important to lead with that purpose. What's meaningful to you? And we talked a little bit before the show about building a life by design and going in and making sure that the things that you do align with who you want to be and not what these other outside expectations are of who you should be. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I think when I first started out, I was young and I started out in my career of teaching, and I love that. I love the idea of teaching. I started getting this wearisome fatigue as I moved in throughout the several decades. I moved up into university work and teaching educators up there, and then teaching adult learners in human growth and development. But I think what really hit me was I'd outgrown my purpose for my 20s and my 30s. Now I'm in my 50s. No one told me this. This is why I moved to the field of coaching, because I ended up hiring a coach, because I'm like, I keep interviewing for these jobs and I don't like it, but I don't know what I do want, but I know what I don't want. And I'm kind of feeling crazy. Well, this was my midlife shift, my midlife crisis, if you will. But what I like to call now as a coach is your midlife opportunity to reassess your purpose. What I began to realize is I loved teaching. I just didn't want to keep teaching on the 3 R's or on the curriculum set ahead of in front of me. I realized I get to take my purpose of teaching and move it into a field of coaching, but I get to teach what I want to teach on. And when that phrase came out of my mouth about 2 decades ago now, I was realizing that's my purpose. And our tendency is to kind of throw everything out with the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, and say, oh, this purpose is no longer serving me. And I want to say, hang on. There's probably something in there that's still there. The roots of it are still there. It just gets to take on a completely different face now. It gets to take on a different arena. And so that moved me into starting my own coaching company. But I would never have thought that I would be an entrepreneur and starting my own coaching company. But it all came from that purpose that says, I want to create what I want to teach on. And I know my purpose in this world is to teach and really to be a student. I'm just insatiably curious. So to be able to step into those conversations, that kept me in the learning space that I just really crave in the field of education.
So do you think people come into their purpose later in life, or do you think it's just kind of an evolution where you're trying to figure it out, or maybe you start down a certain road and then you grow or you change? Or I can imagine that there are people who might be very well aligned with their purpose at one spot in their life, and then they evolve out of it to the fact of maybe I'm not doing exactly what I want to be doing at this point in my life. Do you see that a lot?
Yes, I think that comes with age. I think, I see this, so I'll use this metaphor of like the buffet line. My 20s, I'm just like, I'm putting everything on my plate. I don't know if I like mashed potatoes or baked potatoes. I don't know if I want roast beef or chicken. I don't know what I want, but it's like I was that person with the student in the front row with the hand up saying, pick me, pick me. I want to try it all. I think what happens is our purpose gets more refined and it gets more experienced and we get more clarity, and it starts moving us into more of that North Star that says, now I know what I want. And I'm going to take all these other things off my plate and I know exactly what I want to eat today. That's what I think that my tagline is clarity, confidence, courage. I think the same thing is with our purpose. We get more clarity, more confidence, and more courage around our purpose with each passing decade. And I think that's what gets exciting when we're committed to a purpose living paradigm in life. Our purpose only gets more refined and we get more skill sets that support that purpose.
Yeah, it seems too like, we've got all these outside influences in our life telling us what we should be or what we should be doing. And it starts as a young age when you're a little kid and your parents are going, you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, you should be a this, you should be a that. You've got your teachers talking in your ears. You've got all these people telling you what you should be. And you don't have a lot of people saying, listen to what you want to be or listen to how you want to grow. And I suppose as you age too, sometimes that starts to fade away where you don't think about those outside pressures as much and you rely on your own instincts a lot more. Do you think that's something that might be relevant to why maybe as you get older, it gets easier to push those outside influences away?
Yes and no. I think what I've begun to realize is that it's a muscle that we need to develop. I love that you brought this up because it's the core of my research. I began to see that in the work that I was doing, we were losing a tremendous amount of individuals between the ages of 18 and 25. And when I say losing them, they were spiraling down. They were dealing with depression, anxiety, fears, and we didn't know why. The researchers were calling it a social epidemic and saying we need more research around this. So that's where I stepped in with my doctoral dissertation. I said, well, let me start looking at, if we know how to spiral down, logic tells us we know how to spiral up, and people are doing it out there. Let's start having the conversation around the spiraling up people and not keep talking about the spiraling down. Like, we know a ton about the spiraling down and we need that conversation. But research typically can be negative by nature. And to be able to step in that conversation to say what caused people to begin to spiral up, I think that's where it got really exciting for me. That's where I realize in the work that I do, it's a muscle that we have to develop. It's in neuroplasticity and neuroscience is all showing this as well. How we think about things in life determines really how our life, the results that are come out in our life. And so how we step into that mindset is a whole other ball game. But it's like, I work with a trainer and he'll put a 5-pound weight in my hand and other days he'll put a 25-pound weight in my hand. And I'm like, of course I love the 5-pound weight days. I can feel confident and comfortable, but it's those 25 pounds that really start building that muscle. It's the same thing with our mindset. It's just, particularly North America, we don't really have conversations around how to level up in our mindset as much as I think we could be, because there's strategic ways to do it and the research is showing it. It's just a really new conversation, and that's where I get really excited about.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like when people are spiraling downward, it's kind of like a compounding effect. Like one bad thing happens and then another one hits them and that becomes that much bigger and it just keeps pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. And so many people have a hard time spiraling up, particularly people who have gone through a lot of trauma, people who have something in their past maybe. There's so many people that I know, even that I grew up with, that went through some pretty significant trauma. And some of them had the same traumas. I had the same trauma that I'm referring to. I was able to climb up, where the others spiral downwards. And I've always wondered what the difference is between the spiraling down and those that are able to climb back up. But I guess my question for you would be that person who has spiraled down and you want to start building that memory, that muscle memory that you're talking about upstairs to start going the other way. What kind of things do they need to do to really start climbing back up and out and then upward?
Yeah. Gosh, I love that you're asking that question. Thank you for asking that question, because our society needs that question to be asked. I think the easiest way for me to answer that is using a story. And this is why I created this allegory. And it's about this little girl. When she's very young, she loves playing on her tire swing. She goes out and she just has a blast on this tire swing. And on it, she feels so free and beautiful and just passionate and wild in life. What happens is she's given a bracelet. She loves this bracelet. It makes her feel valuable, cherished, loved. But over the years, as she ages, she gets more and more bracelets, so much so that they go all the way up to her shoulders that prevents her from going on her tire swing. That's where I meet people. Nobody's telling them, hey, do you want that bracelet? Hey, did you know you've got bracelets all the way up to your shoulders? Now, people instinctively know. They're like, I'm really angry, or I'm depressed, or I'm exhausted. This is usually where I find people. When I tell them this allegory, now in the work that I do with people, they'll jump on the line with me and say, Heather, I need help with my bracelets today. Because keep in mind, bracelets are neither good or bad. That's part of adulting, right? We got to learn how to balance these bracelets. But to your point, you said this earlier, and I love that you said this. Nobody's telling us at a young age, hey, when's the last time you jumped on that tire swing? Do you even know what your tire swing is anymore? And by the way, did you know that that's your tire swing is what gives you more clarity, more confidence, more courage in your life? You think it's the bracelets that you're balancing that's giving you that? No. Those are givers who gave you that whether good intention or bad, and you're going to trauma, could have been toxic givers in your life. Whatever it is, on whatever scale and continuum that is, you've been wearing bracelets and you don't even realize that you've been wearing these bracelets and that you now have the power to take them off. So now the conversation shifts away from how do I manage my bracelets and basically get through life without a tire swing to how do I get to take bracelets off and do it that makes me feel alive and makes me feel valuable and cherished, and how do I get to keep visiting my tire swing? So now we move from a space spiraling down, which is very codependent, defeatism, victimization, to a space that says, nobody told me I could take these bracelets off. Like, that's the joy of the work that I do. Not only can you take these bracelets off, but you get to go find your tire swing. And P.S., it usually shifts throughout life. And if you go further in the story, she goes and spends time under the stars, and that's when she hears a voice on the wind that says, I don't have to wear these bracelets. So now you're leaning into your higher sense of self, or even a higher power out there that's saying, wait a minute, I think I'm made for more. And I think I get to listen to myself versus to all the other voices out there.
So how does that awareness come to somebody? I know that a lot of people feel so trapped and so stuck, and, maybe their arms are loaded with these bracelets.
Yeah.
But that person is sitting there going, I've got the bracelets. What's my first step? What do I need to do to start removing these things? What do I mentally need to do? What do I have to get myself ready for to really start taking control of these bracelets on my arm and getting rid of them?
Okay, here's what you're going to hear, everybody. You can do this in 2 conversations or less. You can do this with these 5 tips or techniques. You can do this if you just read this one book. You're going to hear this out there. What I'm going to do is tell you the voice of truth, which says you got to slow down. You got to give yourself time on a daily basis to create a cadence to start listening to what your inner self is telling you. That takes time. And you know what? It's easier if you choose a really good guide, a coach, a mentor, a Sherpa, whatever you want to call it, a guide that comes alongside you and asks you the right questions. What we want in this world right now is a very quick fix. There's a quick way to do this. Don't worry about it. If you just pay for this course, or if you just do this, it'll all magically happen. It won't, and it isn't. To be able to really deal with the reality of what life change means, in some ways it's easier than you think, and in some ways it's harder than you think. It's easier than you think because you hold all the clarity, confidence, and courage within you. You just got to slow down and take time to listen to it and go find your tire swing and go spend time under the stars. You will get all the clarity you need. Many of us resist that, particularly all my high achievers that I'm working with. They want me to help them figure out how to go faster and harder. They want me to help them figure out how to stay on the hamster wheel. Usually by the time they get to me, and I work with these high achievers, they don't like what they have to hear, which is you got to slow down. You got to give me 6 months. We're going to talk together twice a month. And the very first chapter in my book is a permission slip for you to start moving into restorative rest, mind, body, heart, spirit. Well, many of them are so tired by the time they hear this, they're like, whatever, I've tried everything else. I'll give this a go. What they don't realize is it starts accessing a whole new reservoir that's sitting deep within them, but they've been looking out everywhere else. The goal then is for them to feel that empowerment, that's long-term sustainability, so that when you do get too many bracelets going on your arm and you've lost your tire swing, you start seeing the signs sooner and you know what to do about it versus constantly staying in motion. And that's what a lot of my high achievers, high performers love doing. Well, I'll just go faster. I'll go harder. I'll do more. I'll add more to my list. And I'm like, yeah, how's that working for you? Well, I'm miserable and I hate my life and I'm mad and I'm angry and I'm depressed. I'm like, yeah, we're beginning to spiral down. You're just trying to grit through this. What you're not doing is this whole, and it's going to feel counterintuitive, to slow down, take a beat, start creating a new cadence to really stop and listen to yourself. And I get into practical ways of how to do that. I swear it's not all fluff. There's practical ways of how to do that and the neuroscience, but you got to get my book if you want that.
Yeah, high performers are like that. I mean, they just go and go. And I'm the same way. I'm a high performer. And for me, it's like, how much more can I do? How much more can I do? If I just push, we're going to be better. We're going to make more. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work out. And matter of fact, I just went through that recently where I was running. I was trying to get everything into place, everything I wanted perfectly. And I got to the point where I just couldn't do it. I went like, almost a month and a half straight, 15-hour days, every day, no weekends, just driving. And for me, I had to get out of my element for a few days and stop, take a breath. We've got some property down in Costa Rica. I got on a plane, went down to Costa Rica, took some breaths, came back and slowed down and said, it's okay. Quit sprinting. Get into that marathon mode. Life's this marathon. You don't need to be sprinting. My wife even said the other day, we were sitting there outside and she's like, you are just way more relaxed right now.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of taking changing that mindset a little bit, slowing down, stopping intentionally, taking a breath, and then looking ahead.
Yeah. And our loved ones are the ones that are going to tell us. So we got to listen. And it's very humbling for me. I will be very transparent. It's humbling for me how much I forget this. I think I wrote this book more for me than I did for anyone else because I too am that go-getter. If you want to get results, get in gear. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, do more, add more to that task list. It feels very, not only counterintuitive, but very unnerving and high risk to pull back and go to Costa Rica, to actually go maybe surfing, to maybe, in my case, I love taking hikes, getting out in nature, painting. I'm an artist. To do that, when I've got a to-do list, that feels like wrong. And please hear me on this. I'm all about taking high responsibility for our lives and making sure that we're hustling and doing everything. But we know when we're off, and more importantly, our loved ones know when we're off. My kids will tell me. My husband will tell me. My close circle of friends will tell me. And I'm like, ugh, this is so embarrassing. I coach on this. I teach on this. I do this all. And they're all telling me you're running too fast and too hard. They'll say, when's the last time you've had your tire swing up? When's the last time you've really counted those bracelets up? Because we love all of the power that comes with some of these bracelets and the importance and feeling needed or whatever these core beliefs that are kind of haunting us, that's making us push forward. And that's when we get that new clarity that says, wait a minute, why am I doing all this? Why am I risking a relationship that I care about in my life? Why am I putting strain on myself or those that I care about around me? This isn't the way I want to live my quality of life. And I think it's harder when we're entrepreneurs because, and I joke, I'm the worst boss I've ever worked for. So we have to have that clarity in our own sense. And this is where I will get really practical for your listeners. I call it my Thrive Plan. And this is where I work with my clients. But if you can think of daily, weekly, monthly, annual, that's your long-term game plan to really monitor your cadence for how you're really monitoring your engaging with your tire swing and time under the stars. What are you doing daily? Around an hour. What are you doing weekly? Around 2 to 3 hours. What are you doing monthly? Around a half a day to a day. What are you doing annually? Like 2 or 3 days of getting away. We have to keep that cadence. A lot of times when we're working for different organizations, that cadence is built in. When we're working for ourselves, that cadence can get really removed. And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs, I've watched them kind of spiral down because they don't have that cadence or those boundaries around them to support a more balanced and harmonious life.
Well, it seems like entrepreneurs too really want, I mean, we want to be successful. We want to
Yeah.
drive, we want to be really successful. We want to be moving our company forward. We want to be
Yeah.
getting employees in that we can support and feed
Yeah.
their goals and their dreams. And there's so many things that we want to do that we push and we push and we push and we push
Yeah.
because there's that F word being failure
Yeah.
that is
We
really kind
hate
of more
that.
of a learning opportunity, but we're looking at that. It's in our rearview mirror all the time. Every
Yeah.
time we look, we're like, oh boy, where's it at? Was it still there?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just about saying it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're going to be
Yeah.
okay. Everything's going to be okay. Keep working hard. Yes. But you're not going to help anybody out when you're driving yourself into the ground. You're not
Hmm.
going to be good for your family. You're not going to be good for your employees. You're not going to be good for the people that you support when you don't have that energy and what you need to really be putting your best self forward in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well, I like to dig a little deeper. What belief is driving you? I'm not enough. I can't risk failing. People are counting on me. I'll never hit the standard. I mean, I could keep going because these are the false, what I call them false beliefs that really limit you. And so in order to have that long-term sustainability for life change, we have to go to our core beliefs. And many of us have been living with these for as long as we can remember. So it's very hard to pull them out. And that's why I really encourage you, find someone that can listen to you and hear those core beliefs and really challenge it. And then I like to help people shift it into a true belief. I get to trust the process. I get to believe in my pacing. I get to let go, or I get to release whatever it is that you're needing that counteracts that false belief. And then I always say anchor it into something, usually something on the right side of the brain. If you can anchor it into whatever poetry or scripture or movie or song or anything like this, if you're people of faith, your higher power, you're stepping into this consciousness that says, I want to let go of this false belief that's causing me to spiral down. And I want to start reaching for a new belief. And when I tell people, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to label it true belief, but I'm so sorry it doesn't feel true right now. I promise you, you give it 30 days, practice it 5 minutes a day. The neuroplasticity research is showing that it is shifting the neural pathways in our brain. This is really exciting. This is super exciting research that's coming out. We just haven't known how to actually monitor that. And then the culture that we live in, and particularly the high achievers I work with, we want the quick fix in like 2 minutes or less. And so when I say 30 days, 5 minutes a day, really, what is that? That's not a big deal when you're looking at life-term sustainability change. When's the last time we heard something 30 days, on a repeated basis? We're in a very quick fix culture right now. And I want to say, give it time, but make sure you're focusing on the right thing and you're releasing the false belief that is no longer serving you, and you're reaching for a true belief that's pulling you up and starting to spiral you up. And a lot of times people can't find their own true belief. And I would say, ask a trusted friend or advisor in your life. They usually know. They'll tell you. I myself will ask people. I'll ask my husband, well, help me understand. I'm trying to let go of this false belief. Can you help me grab onto a true belief right now? So now you have a really educated way, an intelligent way of how you're asking people to support you, instead of just saying a free base. Everyone gets to weigh in my life. I'm like, no, you still get to be in the driver's seat even when you're struggling.
What do you think differentiates a leader from somebody? I don't know if everybody's a leader or not. I maybe that's another good question for you. Do you think everybody's got leadership in them? But the person who's actually leading versus the person who's not, what do you think differentiates those two people?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I do think somewhere in us, all of us hold capacity for leadership. I think about the stay-at-home mom who's working with 2 toddlers. I hope she sees herself as a leader. Those little toddlers need her to lead them. I think about the CEO running a multi-million-dollar organization. I hope he or she sees themselves as a leader. So I think it really starts with that mindset. What are you leading in this life? Don't minimize it. You're leading something. You could even be going in and going to Starbucks every day, and you're stepping into the coffee shop, and how you lead with your space, interacting with that barista or the people that you're engaging with. I think there's a certain, and I know that's a very broad term for leadership, but I think there is a certain amount of self-agency that we all need to hold, that we have a responsibility for our space, which is why I wrote my latest book, Grace Space. I wanted people to feel this empowerment. wherever we live or lead, everything starts within for who we are. Now, fast forward to like, what's the actual definition of leadership? I think I would refer to Ken Blanchard, and he endorsed my book, Grace Space, but I love his definition of leadership, which is servant leadership. It's serving the people in front of us, putting them above ourselves and saying, how can I meet them where they're at versus how can they meet me where I'm at? One is a very ego-driven, self-centered way to live, and one is a very servant way to live, recognizing that great leadership serves their people, but not in a way that's codependent or weak, but in a way that elevates them up and empowers them to not only do more and be more, but oftentimes even be better than we are as leaders. If they can even surpass us, what a gift that is. But many leaders, if they're ego-driven, that can be very threatening to them. So they don't want to serve their people. They want to feel very much on top. So that's a really broad answer to leadership, but I feel like the temptation is to put ourselves into just one definition for leadership. And I would challenge the definition of leadership out there to say it gets to be as broad as a stay-at-home parent and as significant as servant leadership.
I would agree with you on that too. And even that mom who's with those two toddlers is still leading by putting into those children, right? Like you were saying, that definition of lifting them up. And yeah, there might be a lot of ego out there in leadership at times, but well, I'll tell you what, that leader who really selflessly leads, there's selfish service and there's selfless service.
Yes.
And that person who is selfless in what they're doing, boy, those folks will go so much further in those leadership roles than that person who leads from a selfish position.
Well said. So well said, Robin. I couldn't say it better myself.
Tell me a little bit about your book. I know we've talked about it a little bit, Grace Space. I want to know a little bit more.
Sure. Grace Space it just recently launched in February. My first book was on clarity, confidence, courage, and it's like this thick. For those of you who aren't watching me, I'm holding up about 3 inches of a book. And it's a nice, meaty book to sit down and really take a journey through and feel like you have a coach in your corner. And it's a really powerful process for you. And it has an e-course with it and a journal that goes with it. So it's a really powerful, reflective process. Grace Space, and I'm holding up my fingers again, and it's like half an inch, is this big. I begin to realize that our people, again, I'm working with so many high achievers, they need that chance to slow down. That would be my first book, The Life You're Made For. Slow down, and if you're feeling exhausted and weary, go get The Life You're Made For. Pull back, get the e-course with it, the journaling, do it with a friend, mentor. I think you get a lot out of it. Grace Space is really that quick read when you are moving forward and you're moving fast and you just need something to orient your mindset and your thinking. You can read it within a day, and it can help shift not only the culture that you want your people to live in, but it shifts the internal culture of your mindset. And it's based on 7 practices. The first one is responding versus reacting, questioning versus accusing. And it goes on through 7 practices. But the whole premise really is you have the power to choose whether you're going to accuse or whether you're going to question. And we always have a nanosecond. Many of us don't realize that we are almost getting victimized by the stresses of our environment. And we're seeing it everywhere around us. And this is the process of spiraling down. If you're going to choose to accuse versus question, and the thread through all that is staying curious, if you choose to just accuse people instead of staying curious and question them, all we're going to do is just keep going at each other, and things are going to start escalating, and it just moves into the spiraling down conversation. As leaders, our goal really is to step in these spaces and start saying, I'm going to choose to be curious. And even though that comment came at me really hard, I want to further the questioning around it instead of just accuse back. Or even if I'm getting accused, I don't want to accuse back. I want to slow it down and start questioning. Many of us don't even realize that there's an option if we're just a nanosecond to reach for something else. And I think that's why I got so clear on these, where it even moves into trust versus freedom. Trust versus fear, and then freedom versus control. We're moving in these spaces where we have a choice to make. And when you have that much clarity on these, what I call practices, because you got to lift your weights on them, you got to practice it. When you start having this awareness that you have a choice, what I have found in working with humanity, 99% of the people want to choose well. We just didn't realize that choice was out there. So we're almost feeling victimized by the circumstances and the people that we're engaging with.
Yeah, no, that sounds interesting. And it's kind of like, life's kind of like that, isn't it? I mean, we're overthinkers, and sometimes we don't take that little nanosecond to step back and just evaluate a situation or think through maybe something that was said or something that was done to really get to the root of the why. And I think when we don't ask those
Hmm.
questions, we're doing a big disservice to ourselves more than anybody.
Yes. I don't think people realize how great they are, too. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because a popular conversation is really running down humanity right now. And I just go, humans are actually phenomenal. They're absolutely phenomenal. I want them to start seeing their ability to carry gray space around with them anywhere. And that's why I opened the book with a historical story about World War One. Many of you probably already heard about this, about Silent Night, when they were fighting on either side of the trench. And it was about a week before Christmas. And pretty soon, one of the German soldiers put up a couple Christmas lights. And then progressively, as it moved through up to Christmas Day, they started throwing gifts across the line of cigarettes and magazines and warm socks, till actually on Christmas Day, both sides of the trenches were meeting in the middle of no man's land, sitting down and having a feast together and exchanging gifts, playing football. So much so that on December 26th, when they resumed the battle, they refused to shoot at each other and they were shooting over each other's head, and they had to bring in fresh troops. And I just go, what a powerful picture. These are individuals. And I always wonder, who was that first person that said, I'm over this? I need some space of grace around us. I need some kindness. I need some love. I need to remember that it's Christmas. And to be able to have that ripple effect, I want to empower every human being out there that says, did you know you carry spaces of grace within you, that you actually can do this and you can cause a ripple effect, and vice versa? You can also cause a very toxic ripple effect. Being able, when people understand that, this is where I get so excited about working with humans. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, no, I want to be defensive, not receptive. I want to accuse, not question. I want to control, not be free. They don't say that. They say, I want to be the other side of inspirational connection and leadership and just serving humanity. Humans really want that. Many of us just aren't equipped with how to do it. The work that I do is hopefully equipping each of you to be able to feel that sense of inspiration and empowerment to take these spaces of grace around you wherever you live and lead.
I think we need it more than ever right now, too. I feel like in the United States, anyway, it is so divisive. We are so separated right now. There are so many people that cannot agree, and they're not going to agree. And they, whether it's politics or whether it might just be how they view life. And you've got this great, great chasm right now. What do you think it's going to take for that first person to put up that first set of Christmas lights?
Yes. Well, yeah. Rodman, don't you want to be asking all of our listeners? I mean, can't we all just join this today and start doing this? I mean, everybody knows what it will take. We don't have to answer that for them. They know internally. That guy wasn't told, oh, go put up a Christmas tree and create a ripple effect and put up the lights. And he wasn't told. He knew what he was supposed to do, which created the ripple effect of all this amazing creative clarity that, again, I want to keep calling everyone out to say, you hold this within you. Please don't release this powerful stance that you have in our world to create spaces of grace that allow more and more ripples of kindness and goodness and goodwill. And the way I describe grace in that book, it's a big word, but it's to be considerate and offer goodwill to one another. Who doesn't want that, and who doesn't want to be that person? That's what I have found with humans. Once we give them the choice and understanding they have a choice, most of us choose well. Doesn't mean we're perfect. The goal is not perfection. The goal is practicing how to choose better every time we're in these situations of stress.
But Heather, I feel like people need your book more now than ever. I think we all need to find that grace that you're talking about. But I want people to be able to find you, find your book. Where do they need to go to get information about what you're doing?
The easiest place is really just my website, heatherpenny.com. And on there, you can find all the spaces of wherever you buy your books, but it'll lead you right to websites to buy my book. And also I have tons of podcasts where I'm talking around all these conversations with other people in this world to make sure that it feels applicable. And I just offer a lot of vast resources for you. So the website, I would say, start there and decide what it is that you want. And if you want to reach out to me personally, there's a way to do that also on my website.
Love that. And I always ask this one last question. And I love this question because it could have about a million different answers. But if you could go back in time and sit down with your younger self and give your younger self that one piece of what you think is the most valuable advice that you've gained over your lifetime of experience, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say, sweetie, don't be so scared of change. I think there's claw marks on so many things I had to release in my world because it was all I could see. It was the process of death and dying and loss. I couldn't quite hold on to the fact that something was being reborn, rebirth, built up. And I like to think that I'm holding on to that better as 54, but that's still something I'm wanting to grow in. And I wish someone could have told me that in my younger years. It's okay. You're going to evolve and change myriad of times, countless times, but that's what's necessary to level up and to get a richer, higher level quality of life. And with every change that has happened in my life and in my world, the outcome of that eventually, not in the moment, but the outcome is usually a richer and higher level quality of life. I just wish I had had that perspective when I was younger.
Well, thank goodness you've got it now.
Yes. Thanks,
Heather,
Robin.
thank you so much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed this conversation. And for all you out there, make sure you go out and check out Heather's information, check out her books, check out what she's putting into the world. She's just full of great resource and so much good data. So thank you, Heather.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm cheering you all on.